And joining us now is Andrew Smith. He's a senior lecturer in contemporary history and politics at the University of Chichester. Thanks so much for joining us. As we just heard there, at this point, the results appear to be leaning in President Macron's favor, but not by much. So what would it mean for him if he can't hold on to a majority?
I think it represents a real disappointment for Emmanuel Macron. There is in this potential for not having a majority or a reduced majority, a real kind of giving up of the incentive. It really makes it difficult for him to introduce bills to Parliament, him to push them through the Assembly in the way that he would normally want to as a president. It's going to mean, of course, that far from the kind of depoliticisation which Emmanuel Macron has tried to bring into French politics, instead he could face a very politicised opposition represented by NUPES and this, of course, left-wing coalition, uniting a number of different tendencies across the left. It's also going to mean an increased importance of the role of the Republican Party, the centre-right, who didn't collapse. They didn't have a result as disastrous as they did in the presidential, and who may now be kingmakers when it comes to trying to get things through. I think if Macron falls just short of that 289 seats for an absolute majority, then suddenly the seats of the Republicans and those who are sort of Macron compatible will become extremely important. And actually, I think their importance will really be heightened by the need to trade horses and figure out how this is actually going to happen. But a lot to play for in the week to come before the second round.
So if the NUPES, or the New Popular Union, beats Macron's coalition, it's not automatic that Jean-Luc Mélenchon would become the prime minister. Isn't that right? Can you sort of explain how that would play out?
Yes, it's an interesting one, isn't it? This was a new dynamic after the presidential election. Jean-Luc Mélenchon, the leader of La France Insoumise, France Unbowed, but also this nominal leader of the new union across the left, said this was a third round of the presidential election and called on French people to elect him. Emmanuel Macron, of course, countered. He was briefing heavily against Mélenchon as an extremist and all the rest. And he said that you can't win an election that you don't stand in, which has some logic to it, I think. Now, the president appoints a prime minister, and so that means there is no way in which it becomes automatically the case that Mélenchon would be elected. The projections right now make it that it looks unlikely, if not impossible, that NUPES will secure a majority themselves, but they may well be able to force more to the agenda of Macron. So I think we can almost rule out right now Mélenchon becoming prime minister. But stranger things have happened at sea, as they say. You never do know, especially in these topsy-turvy times. For the left, it is a really exciting victory for them. Importantly, they haven't massively grown their electorate. What they have done is they've clamped down on their self-destructive tendencies. And instead of running 10 candidates for the same constituency, they've united that into one. And so they've managed to halt and arrest that decline that they've faced in recent years. And so this is a really important change in the momentum, I think, in terms of French politics.
Yeah, I think you're right. You never know what could happen. The abstention rate was higher than ever, more than 50%. How do you explain this huge apathy on the part of French voters?
It's wild. As you said, the latest Ipsos polls, I think it was an Ipsos stereo poll, which said that amongst 25 to 34-year-olds, there was an absolute majority of people did not vote. And I think really when you're looking at this idea that most of the French youth are not voting, it says that there's something wrong. In some ways, the story of this election will be excitement for the left, but in other ways, it is also one of disappointment and disillusionment. The left has done well, but they haven't grown their electorate. The majority has shrunk, and so it will have its hands bound a little bit. There is also this important idea that the far right haven't gone away. Zemmour looks like he has been rejected outhand by the voters, but Marine Le Pen's constituency hasn't fallen away, as it often does in legislative elections following the presidentials. And so this big gap of people who feel that really nothing is changing, they look to Macron's re-election. They see, nice words, but not much action. The appointment of Papendiaï on one hand and Gérald Darmanin on the other. These kind of competing tendencies within Macronism that says, what does it all stand for? And that produces a constituency of people disillusioned with politics. And really, that's your democratic danger right there. The work in the next week, Elisabeth Borne said it, of course, every party will call for the electorate to come out. And the hope is they can energise these people who chose not to vote and give them something that represents a re-engagement in French politics. Otherwise, there is an ongoing issue with the system.
Okay, we want to thank you, Andrew Smith, Senior Lecturer in Contemporary History and Politics at the University of Chichester. Thanks a lot, as always.